Okay, so going back into support and resistance, I had suggested that perhaps you give yourself some homework, as it were, to find these levels and go through and mark them on a chart. And I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to show you a couple things that I've noticed over the years that may make a lot of your education when it comes to support and resistance accelerated, because that's really the goal. We want to get to being good as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, that's normally through experience. Experience is normally the result of bad decisions. Well, I've made a lot of them in the past, and hopefully you'll learn from them instead of having to do them for yourself. So I took a little while in my early trading days when I really got serious. I think we all kind of start out just flailing around wildly, and then one day you realize, hey, this is going to take some work, and that's fine. I'm willing to put in the time, etc. So once I got to that point, I, on the weekends, would literally pull up. At the time, I had a broker in the United States. The name eludes me now, which has now closed, but they had a massive amount of currency pairs at the time. And you could pull up the charts, and I want to say it was something like 75 pairs, which is quite a bit, especially now in the U.S. So we pulled that up, on the weekends, me and a buddy that was trying to learn at the same time. And what we would do is we would just go through and mark up each chart. I would then do it at the end of my trading day. So I was doing this hundreds of times a week. So now I have learned to quickly glance at a chart, and I pick off probably like 80% of the support and resistance just at the first glance. I don't even have to really think about it, but that took a lot of time. One of the motivational speakers out there who is the most famous is Tony Robbins, and he made some kind of comment once that really stuck with me, that experience you can get as quickly as you want. If you do something 10,000 times in a week, you have the same amount of experience as somebody who does 10,000 times over 20 years. You've just achieved it quicker. So that's exactly what we're going to do. One thing that I've noticed, support and resistance loves large round numbers. In front of you, I have the Caterpillar stock weekly chart. This is the CFD off of a demo broker. And I'll do this with a couple different charts. And what I want to show you is, you can put the line on the chart, and then you go to the horizontal properties, you go to parameters, and I'm going to go ahead and just start plopping in round numbers. And what I mean by round numbers are like whole numbers. 10, 20, 30. Those tend to take up the most interest on a chart. I have no other theory for it than one of two things. Either people are stupid, which is a theory I subscribe to, or quantitative studies and stuff react. If you have an algorithm, it's easier to put in a price of, if we touch 100 and this happens, then buy or sell or whatever. I think people are stupid works as well, so keep that in mind. You'd be stunned at how stupid some of the quote-unquote brightest and best are in the financial world. Okay, so here we go. There's 80. And you can already see what's happening here. This is the weekly chart of Caterpillar. 90. So all I've done is I've gone through and marked every $10, and you can see that this, of course, has mattered. Let me zoom out, and you can see that over time there has been a lot of interest in this area. Again, watch the first video. Nothing's perfect, but you can clearly see that for quite some time there were buyers at 80, sellers at 90. It's really as difficult as you need to make this. You really don't need to make it any more difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this, and I'm going to pull up another chart. Let's see, Citigroup, and I'll do some Forex pairs here in a minute. Get rid of this annoying grid, go back to weekly. There's a bad tick, don't even pay attention to that. It's unfortunately something you get from time to time. So 55, you can see. Now, you'll notice that was a 5 number. Well, a half number is a round number if you think about it. 55, 50. You don't want to get too far involved at first. You just want to kind of play the market as it were, try to find consistent and simple numbers. So you can see here 45 and 55 has both acted as support and resistance. I can almost guarantee that you could make an argument for 50. But when it isn't as clear as that, one thing I like to look at it as, okay, so you have a range between 45 and 55. Well, what does that make 50? 50 is fair value for that entire time frame. That's why there's buyers and sellers there, but we keep finding ourselves going to that area. There are entire trading systems based upon this box and that midline, and those are things I'll probably look into later. Full disclosure, I'm more or less making this course up as I go along. Let me go ahead and save this template because I like it much cleaner like this. So I'll just name that default, and then what happens is when you pull up a new chart, it should do the same thing. So Comcast, you pull it up, you can see that we have had, quite volatile trading. But again, you could go to round numbers, and you will find that people are attracted. There's 25 and 30 and on and on. So that being said, what about Forex? Well, Forex is going to be a little bit different, only in the sense that your round numbers, you have to think of them along the lines of pips. So when I look at these, I'm going to go ahead and pull up, what do we got here? British pound. So British pound, this is an area where people have been paying quite a bit of attention to. So let's go through 150. 140. 160, why not there? And you can see that 160, there was a lot of movement through it. You can see that they were fighting in that area. So 160 for me becomes less important, but I do recognize that it has some value, right? And also you have to keep in mind that if I put on 1.65, you can see that there were reactions there. And this would be like those half, like 55 instead of 50 or 60. That's about as in the weeds as you need to get when you're doing this. So, this looks complicated up here, but keep in mind there's 500 points between each one of those. You don't necessarily take the trade off the weekly chart, but you certainly can see where you should be taking the trades. As I come into play here a little bit into this area, you can see that these lines, this gives you plenty of room to trade. Now, yes, you can go through, and this is the first thing somebody's going to say, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this, and what about this? Yes, those are all areas that can affect price. But you're going to make the bulk of your money off of trades that go from like 150 to 160. Just trust me, that's the way it works out longer term. So you need these types of roadmaps, or even 500 pips. Those are great. I know it's scary at first to think that, hey, I'm going to trade for 500 pips on this trade. But there's no reason you can't. It's just a matter of letting the trade work with you. Now, you can make an argument for, okay, well, I've got this going on, and I see all these areas here. Well, how do I feel confident, trading this? Well, simply put, after this significant sell-off and this significant bounce, we broke down several times. So obviously the downtrend was the way to go. As you zoom in, then you can kind of finalize your support and resistance, because it isn't always going to be at the 1,000 pip handle. Sometimes, if there's something in particular going on in a market, you will get other levels that can affect. But at the end of the day, about 95% of the areas that you look into are going to be 500 pips apart. That matter, I should say. You can see that 125, you could make an argument for, well, what about 126? That's a good question. Okay, so I put that there. So how do I interpret this area? Well, the way I interpret it is I go down to shorter time frames. Go ahead and refresh this. Go to properties, auto scroll. Okay, now refresh. Okay, so I interpret this as an area that, yes, has been broken once or twice, but that, to me, looks like an area of support all the way through. So this becomes more of a zone. You will see that from time to time, and that's generally when you're having trouble with a bigger picture. And again, if it gets too complicated, just step away. There's no reason you need to trade cable. You could open up the Euro Aussie, for example. Who cares? Whatever. It all ends up in your account at the same base currency, whatever it is your account's funded with. And then I go through here in this chart and I do the same thing. So I would highly recommend doing this. You will start to see patterns evolve over time of areas that attract buying. And again, this looks very tight, but on the daily, all of a sudden, you've got some room to move. It's 500 points, especially on the 4-hour chart if you're a 4-hour trader. So keep all of that in mind. What you need to do is you need to find a demo account with a broker that offers everything that you can possibly think of and start practicing with that. That is how I learned it, and I can tell you right now, that is probably the number one thing that helped me become even remotely successful at trading. I cannot stress this enough. So I think I've beaten this horse, the support and resistance, the importance of it, basically how to find it. Watch both videos, practice. This is something that you should do from time to time, even on a weekly basis, once you are more successful, just to refresh your levels, if you will. This is gold. If you're curious, it's $100, kind of the same thing. It's basically 1,000 ticks. You can see that we have respected these round levels more than once. With this stuff here in the middle, I don't really get bothered with it. I wait to see if we are finding clear support or resistance at like a large round number, and I become a lot more interested. Okay, up next, we'll start to look at the idea of trends. That is very important. You combine the two, and you are almost to the point where you can start trading, at least logically.